Hi, everyone. Okay, in today's video, this is a really fun topic. I've taken so many notes. I've been reading a book recently on this subject, and so I really wanted to talk about this because it so applies to equestrians. And this is just something that I think a lot of people are not talking about. So I really, really wanted to dive into this topic. And that is the law of automaticity. And I really wanted to dive into this law and talk about how it is directly affecting your writing progress. Okay, because the number one thing is when people, they join our Facebook group, for example, and they share their writing challenges, most of the biggest challenges that they're facing are really like rider position related or balance related. They have bad habits like, oh, I look down at my horse, or oh, my leg is swinging, or I can't sit the canter very well, or insert here. Okay, so the number one, let's say, thing that I hear people having issues with is really their position and their balance. And even when the few riders, they'll try and say to me like, "Oh, I'm having a hard time with adjustability to the jumps, or I'm having a hard time getting, the right spot to the jumps." Well, that can also be position related, because if you are not coordinated with your aids and you don't have balance, you're not able to help your horse. Okay, so that's why everything starts with this. Okay, so I really wanted to talk about. So as I said, I have a bunch of notes. I'm going to do my best to try and go through all of it. Hopefully, we have enough time. So if you guys are joining me today, I want you to comment in the comment section. Okay, this is not just some video that you guys just watch. I need you guys to participate. Okay, if you don't participate, like, really, why am I here doing this? Okay, so I need you to participate. I want you to comment in the comments what the weather is like, where in the world you are joining me from. So I'm in Spain. It's pretty hot here, you guys. It's pretty hot. It's, I think, almost 100 degrees or borderline 100 degrees here, but whew, it's hot here, you guys. It's hot, 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 boiling lava hot. So comment what the weather is like, where in the world you are watching from. I know we have people in Canada, USA, and like East Coast, West Coast, in the middle. We have Australians, New Zealand's, like we have a whole mix of people. So comment, comment, comment. I love to see where you guys are from and like just how international this is. So love it. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about what is the law of automaticity, or what's the principle of automaticity, and then we can dive into, more specifically applying it to equestrians, of course. So automaticity, it's the ability to do things without busying the mind with low level details which are requiring you to kind of pay attention to that thing. So basically it's kind of freeing up the mind by making you do automatic response patterns, i.e., habits. Okay. And usually it's done by repetition, practice, and of course, developing that muscle memory, which I guess a lot of you guys would have heard of previously. So, examples of automaticity, for example, would be walking. Okay. You know how to walk. You don't have to think about how to walk. Okay. You just do it. Okay. You can walk and talk at the same time. You can walk and, I don't know, eat fruit at the same time. Like, you can walk and do other things at the same time because you don't have to think about how to walk. Okay. Same thing with, maybe riding a bike, for example. Some of you guys have been riding bikes since you were, I don't know, 5 years old, right? You don't have to think about how to ride a bike. Okay. Another big one, driving a car. Yeah, you've heard so many times that people will drive, from home to work and work to home, and they have no memory of how they got there because they're on autopilot. Okay, it's just happening automatic. There's actually a scientific term for this. It's called highway hypnosis. Okay, where you just kind of get on the highway and then you just kind of keep cruising and you're on autopilot. Okay, so after an activity is sufficiently practiced, it's possible to focus the mind on other activities or thoughts while undertaking an automized activity. So again, while you're driving that car and you're cruising around on the highway, you know how to get to work even without consciously thinking about it. So you're just on autopilot. And at the same time, you can listen to a podcast, or you can have a conversation with, someone in the passenger seat, or, whatever it is. Okay. So that's sort of what this law of automaticity is. John Bargh, he did over a decade of research on this topic. He actually wrote a paper about it, which actually was able to find online. And he suggested that 4 characteristics usually accompany automatic behavior. So one is awareness. A person may be unaware of the mental process that is occurring. The second one is intentionality. So a person may not intentionally initiate a mental process. The third one is efficiency. So automatic mental processes, they tend to have a low cognitive load, which requires relatively low mental resources. And then the fourth one, this one I think is key. That's controllability. So a person who's kind of having this automatic, let's say, autopilot happening, a person in this autopilot may not have the ability to stop or alter a process after initiation. Okay. So once you're driving from home to work, without even realizing it, like you're not necessarily able to even stop that process. How many times has somebody been on autopilot and they accidentally took the exit to work because they were on autopilot when actually they needed to go a couple exits later and go somewhere else? Okay, but they're like, oh man, I was heading off to work. Okay, I've definitely seen people doing that. Okay, so a person may not have the ability to stop or alter a process after initiation. Think rising trot. Okay, rising trot. Once you start rising to the trot, okay, you're on autopilot. You're not actively thinking about how to do rising to the trot. Okay, so that's again over a decade of research. John Bark, he wrote a paper on it. It's very interesting. So how does this relate to horses? Okay, some of you guys are like, my goodness, horses. How does this relate to horses? A lot of you guys might be wondering, like, whoa, there's a lot of science, Crystal. Okay, this is a lot of science, but here's the thing. I need you guys to stick with me. Okay, because I'm going to get to how it relates to horses very shortly. But first, I really want you guys to understand the why, because so many of you guys, or so many of the times, you'll do something or you'll be asked to do something. A horse riding instructor in a lesson will say things like, oh, put your heels down, but then they don't say the why. Oftentimes people are kind of telling you to do something or they're trying to explain how, but then they don't have a why to kind of support it. Okay, so if you ever stop your instructor and ask why should I put my heels down, most of the time, like 9 times out of 10, they don't actually have a why. Okay, their why is, oh, well, my instructor used to tell me that, or because I said so. Right, which is not an answer. Okay, that's not a why. Heels down is actually one of the worst things that people are teaching, and yet that's being taught like all the time. In fact, there's like even blogs called heels down. Like that's how ingrained it is in our culture as equestrians. So you have to know the whys. Okay, so if you guys are joining me now, live, replay, doesn't matter. I want you to comment, know the whys. Okay, comment, know the whys. Okay, I need you guys to participate. Okay, I need you guys to participate. Otherwise, we're just watching a video and you're not actually going to remember anything a week from now, 10 years from now. Okay, so participate. Okay, so comment, know the whys. Okay, so we've established what automaticity is. Okay, we've established it's a pretty fantastic thing, actually. It's something really cool that our body does to help us basically streamline certain tasks, like tying our shoes. Okay, driving. That way you can free up your mind to be able to do other things. Okay, multitasking, right? So when it comes to developing skills and learning, however, automaticity is actually probably the reason why so many of you guys get stuck at certain levels and actually you start to decline over time. How many times do I hear somebody say, oh, when I was a kid, I rode really good. And now I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s. I wish I could ride as good as I did when I was a kid. Okay, we actually start to decline over time. Okay, so it's kind of like you reach your peak, and then after that peak, you just get worse and worse and worse and worse, steadily over time. So you're not actually progressing. Okay, so for example, research shows that doctors who've been in practice for 20 years are usually less skilled than they were fresh out of medical school. These older doctors are stuck in habitual ways of thinking and acting, and they haven't updated their models or approaches for years. So rather than having 20 years of experience, they often have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times. Okay, anyone resonating with that? I need you guys to just let that sink in for a second here. Okay, rather than having 20 years of experience, they often have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times. How powerful is that? Okay, comment, you guys. Comment like, wow. Okay, wow. Anyone right now, are you thinking of your riding instructors at this point? Okay, a lot of riding instructors in the equestrian industry, guess what? They're no different. Okay, they learn the bare minimum. Okay, and they begin working. Oftentimes, I see riding instructors, they're teaching riding lessons at 18 years old. You know, if I'm honest, I gave my first lesson when I was 18 years old. Okay, I did. It seems irresponsible now. Even though I'd been riding my whole life, you know, I'd been taking lessons. I thought I was really good for sure. I had even trained some horses and sold them for a profit. Okay, at 18. I had already been working with horses since I was 15, and I do mean like working in actual jobs. I wasn't interested in going to college, you know, like I was working with horses my whole life. And, you know, I got hired at 18. Okay, I got hired at 18. And guess what? Most people, they hire young riding instructors. They're 18 years old. And guess what? 20 years later, they're not much different than those doctors. Okay, they have 1 year of experience where they were learning and, you know, taking in a lot of new information, and then from then onwards they just copy and paste and they repeat it 20 times for the next 20 years. Okay, that's why so many of you are unable to progress in your riding, because your current instructors, they can't actually get you there because they themselves never learned how to get there. Okay, so there's actually a doctor, Dr. Erickson. He is an expert on this field, by the way, and he states that most people, okay, most people get limited training and experience. It's oftentimes less than 50 hours for most sports or activities, including skiing, okay, tennis, driving, and horse riding. So most people, they get 50 hours of experience, and during these 50 hours, okay, the individual's performance adapts to the situational demands. So it doesn't even mean that you have to be doing it correctly. Okay, during those 50 hours, you're kind of learning how to go up and down to rising trot, or you're learning how to kind of do canter, or whatever it is. You're learning the basics. Okay, you're not necessarily mastering those things, but your body is kind of adapting with the demands, and you're sort of figuring out, how can I go on autopilot the quickest? Okay, because that's what the brain's job is. The brain's goal is to automate it and free up its time so it can think about other things. Okay, so oftentimes during these 50 hours, the individual's performance, they're adapting to whatever style it is that that current instructor was teaching them how to do it. Okay, and then it gets stuck in their body. And then guess what? Anything 50 hours above, from there onwards, they lose total conscious control, and they're no longer able to make specific, intentional adjustments. Okay, they're on autopilot. Yeah, they're on autopilot. So that is why so many of you guys are having a lot of issues. I had one lady, she joined the group recently. I can't remember what her name was, but she was sharing her story that, you know, oh, she knows in her brain what she needs to do. She's reading all the books. Okay, how many of you guys are reading all the books? Comment. Okay, read it, done it, heard it, seen it, right? You guys know what to do. You're not here because you didn't know what to do. Okay, I think so many of you guys are throwing around big fancy horsey terms and words. Okay, you guys know what to do, but you're unable to do it. Okay, and this is why. Yeah, this is why. So, you know, it's so powerful, you know, what Dr. Erickson had shared on this. I find it very interesting. But here's the thing is, I believe it. I believe it because I've actually seen it in the industry. Okay. I've actually gotten jobs. So, you know, I've worked internationally in 20 plus countries as a professional show jumping coach and a rider and a trainer. And I remember I had some students that I had been coaching at one job, and I had been coaching them for less than a year. I think I was at that stables, and then I, you know, went and I traveled, and I went and I worked in other places. Well, when I left, you know, somebody else came in and took my students, and this was in Cairo actually. And so this guy, he took over my students. I'd never met this guy before, but he heard of me, he knew of me, and he said, you know, years later, he contacted me because a different show jumping stables, a show jumping club by one of the kings in Egypt. He was actually looking for a riding coach, and this guy had been entrusted or kind of given charge of finding a coach to come, you know, work for this guy's private show gym club basically. And he said, we need Crystal. Like, we need Coach Crystal. And the reason that I got that job is because he saw my students and he saw other people's students. And he told me when I, came and I met him for the first time and I got that job, he said, I couldn't believe like the difference between your students and everyone else's students when I came and I took on, that stables. He's like, it was such a difference. Like, your students, like, they were riders, like they could do so much more than everyone else. And this is why, okay? This is why, because, we've implemented a curriculum, okay? We've implemented training plans and systems, okay? So this is why, okay? 50 hours, 50 hours. It's really not that much. How many of you guys have been riding since you were a kid? Okay, for sure you guys have ridden more than 50 hours, but those first 50 hours determined kind of how you were going to ride for the rest of your life, basically. And so that's why our coaching programs and our system is to kind of undo those 50 hours and then program a new 50 hours. Okay, so we're going to put autopilot on you guys, but the correct autopilot. Okay, you're going to rise to the trot correctly. You're going to sit the canter correctly. You're going to go over jumps correctly. Yeah, we have to redo and rebuild that, but it's not as easy as, oh, just do it. Okay, oh, I know, I have the knowledge in my brain. Just get on with it. Just do it. Doesn't work that way. Okay, because your brain takes over and it's on autopilot. It does what it thinks is correct and what it thinks is comfortable, and what it thinks is comfortable is not necessarily correct. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you guys found this very interesting, I know I sure did, I want you guys to comment, okay? I want you guys to comment for those of you who are serious and interested in kind of reprogramming your body and reprogramming your balance and your position and, all these things, and kind of starting on our training plan and our curriculum and working with me personally. Then what I want you to do is comment Zafira. Okay, comment Zafira. That's her in the background. Woo, where can you? That's her. Comment Zafira. Oh, no, that's Mrs. Q, isn't it? Comment Mrs. Q. Okay, Q or Zafira. We love them both. Comment Mrs. Q or Zafira, and I will reach out to you. I'll send you my application, and then that way we can jump on a one-on-one strategy call, come up with a training plan, and then go from there. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm going to go back to the heat. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone. Bye.